Hey, I'm Ilan Rubin, and right now we're going to take a look at the session for my song Looming. This is a song that I put out in early 2024, and as far as the production's concerned, it leans a little more atmospheric and soundscapey as opposed to my other stuff that's been perhaps a little more drums, bass, guitar driven. So, for the first-time viewers of these deep dive sessions, a couple things I want to say. This is a committed session, meaning that this is the final, but I'm missing some plugins. The plugins I'm not missing are baked into the tracks and committed. The routing is not quite the same, so this will not sound exactly as the master does, which you can go listen to right now. But hopefully by the end of this, your curiosity is piqued and you'd like to take a listen. So anyway, this is the session for Looming. And per usual, I'll go through each section of the song and talk about each of them before I proceed to the next. So here's the intro for this song.
One day at a time is all I've got inside, but that's enough.
All right, so not too much going on here. We've got some soulful snaps. We've got some piano just blocking out the chords. We have a choir obviously doing those oohs in melody. And then the very first thing we hear is this, I call it intro ambience sum. And it's a sum of 3 parts. So in its entirety, here's what we have. Okay, then we'll have first part, second part, third part. So those high guitar parts are running through a very airy reverb, most likely the Strymon Night Sky. I can tell there's kind of like an infinite thing going on, and the modulation is either coming from, the old-fashioned mod wheel, the left hand, or mod on the pitch of the reverb in the Night Sky. Great pedal, tremendous potential for doing a lot of soundscape things. And then we have this intro tap right here, which is the following. Not the most interesting, but these staccato notes are coming from an instrument called the Theravox, and it is an Owen Martineau style instrument. I don't know if you've ever seen this sort of thing where it looks like a keyboard, but there's a ring on a wire that you put your finger through, and you move along, you glide, and it has a theremin-like style, or theremin-style sound, I should say. And this one has a couple of buttons that open the gate to trigger the sound. So that's all I'm doing right there. Later on in the song, I actually utilize the instrument for what it's actually worth, but I really like the built-in spring reverb, which is what we hear there. So we then have the first lead vocal that comes in and brings us into the verse.
One day at a time is all I've got inside, but that's enough.
So I'm seeing here that there's a bar of 6/4. Apparently one bar felt a little rushed, so I added an extra couple of beats so that we could then sink into the verse, and that is this.
It can't get worse, it does. Heavy weight is on my shoulders and it hurts so because there's a...
Okay, so structurally, I'm a big fan of pre-choruses, and I usually have a chunkier pre-chorus, something that's a little longer. This pre-chorus almost acts like the last few bars of the verse rather than its own defined section, but it kind of perks your ears up with these chords that change because we pretty much go back and forth from D minor and A minor.
Weight is on my shoulders and it hurts so because
So those two chords, we go up to E flat major and then down to D minor. The E flat kind of makes you perk your ears up a little bit, and then the D minor settles again because that's what the whole thing has kind of been pivoting around for the verse. So stylistically, we have these very dry drums. I definitely used a variety of big fat snare drum accessories. If you like that kind of dead, thuddy sound, those things are fantastic. I love them very much, and I use them all the time. Here's the drum sound. Now you can hear on the snare drum, they are being sent to another kind of reverb, but that's been added on top for stylistic purposes. Now the bass, this is something I forgot about until I kind of revisited the session here. There's no actual bass guitar. There's a Moog, and there's also a key bass, or like a Rhodes piano bass. I don't know if you've seen those. It's kind of like the lower octave and a half of a Rhodes electric piano. Tyne bass, it goes by many names, but the Doors, that was the bass player right there. Left hand. So I made a conscious decision to get the low end from that as opposed to bass guitar, because I wanted it to be very, very even and fill out the low end as opposed to kind of dance around and walk around the way I like to do on the bass guitar. So here's what those two sound like. Okay, and then a lot of the soundscape quality that's coming from this is something called the Cosmos, and it's something made by Soma Laboratories, which is a lot of fun to use, and here's what it sounds like. So I must have made some kind of pad out of guitar chords, fed it into this thing, and it's a sort of toy where you can mess around with it, and as time goes by, it takes on a life of its own. So I got bits and pieces that I liked, and I made that the overall tonal character of the verse. So with all of the above, piano included, this is what we have. And then when it comes to this brief pre-chorus, we have quite a few things that come in all very subtly. We have a Wurlitzer, a chimatron, a glockenspiel, a different kind of mellotron sound, and then a plug-in version of a Prophet 5 that does a sort of dynamic swell that cuts out before the chorus starts. So those sound like the following. So that's what's going on there. We have something that's kind of opening a filter on a reverse sound of sorts. And then we have the chorus.
There's a sadness looming overhead. I can take it, but I'm out of skin to shed. It's a tragic, everlasting dread. And I say one day at a time is all I've got inside, but that's enough.
So all of the sonic characters so far have been established. Even the choirs from the very beginning of the song, we bring them back, but with words in the following section here. Actually, those may have been muted, and I brought them in later. Sometimes I do that. I'll have the idea, I'll lay it all down, and then I realize that the song doesn't feel dynamic enough because too much is coming in at once. So those must have been saved for later. We'll find out where together.
There's a sadness looming overhead. I can take it, but I'm out of skin to shed.
So that's what we have. Lots of octaves filling out those choirs. We have a chorus piano effects, which let's take a listen to that. As you can hear, some very high piano arpeggiated notes from the chords, and that is running through quite a bit of stuff. If memory serves correctly, it may be a combination of things by a company called Cable Guys. They do Halftime and some other stuff. It's slipping my mind right now, but they have a sort of all-inclusive plugin that has bits and pieces of many things, and you can really mangle sounds, stretch things out, and come up with otherworldly things. So that's what I'm going to assume that is. Cable Guys, look them up. They make a lot of fun stuff. Anyway, moving on to verse 2. We'll hear some additions here that differentiate it from verse 1.
Roads you've led me to the center of nowhere. Steady, up ahead's a point where I don't care.
Okay, so quite a few things coming in verse 2. Okay, we have this digitone keys. Now, I love the digitone. It's an Electron device. I actually have the one with the keyboard because I like to be as immediate as possible. I don't have a problem with modules, but if it comes with keys, I will usually take that version if I can make the space. So very simple sound, nothing crazy. And we also have this mellotron here. And then this guitar leading us to the pre-chorus. Ends on a harmony there. I like that guitar. It's definitely a nod to Johnny Greenwood, Optimistic, one of my favorite Radiohead songs. But we then have the same old stuff that came in on the other pre-chorus, which is the whirly chimatron. And in case you're wondering what in God's name is a chimatron, this is what it sounds like by itself. Excuse me, let me mute the digitone. Sounds like a bell mixed with this glockenspiel. The glockenspiel gives it that more organic bell sound. And this Repro 5. This other mellotron, let's hear that. More of a string sound, which I love. It truly is one of my favorite sounds. I'm sure there's a part of these videos with most songs I've done where I talk about how much I love mellotrons. And the Wurlitzer, just to hear it by itself, it brings in a different sonic quality even though it's playing the same chords, but then the right hand of what I'm playing meets up with the falsetto melody. And it's a little crunchy, which is a quality I love about the Wurlitzer electric piano. So altogether, chorus.
There's a sadness looming overhead. I can take it, but I'm out of skin to shed. It's a tragic, everlasting dread. And I say one day at a time is all I've got inside, but that's enough.
So that's chorus 2. And looking at the tracks, I forgot to mention these DI fuzz guitars that come in. Nice and simple, but I love it. Can't get enough of it. There's some kind of guitar room reverb going on there. It sounds like this. Then we have this chorus guitar, which I'm not sure what it is. Let's take a listen. So a very subtle guitar part that's highlighting the center of the chords there. And then there was this other thing called a guitar spiral. And what this is I like really enunciating the top of chord progressions when I can get away with it with a big reverby single note guitar. And I did that here, but this I called guitar spiral. May have been something to do with either a preset on the sound, but it's a reverb that as it decays, the actual pitch of the wet signal slowly dives. So to me, it sounded like a spiral. Let's hear it. Hear it slowly dropping out of tune there, which is nice. So if we listen to what guitars are doing here, it is the following. All right, so we are slowly adding on to the track count, which is something I almost never resist. But the chorus here really explodes into quite a bit going on, so we'll listen to it and then I'll break it down. And I will mention that I changed the last couple of chords in this chorus that lead into the bridge, which kind of gives it that lift. Let me hear it one more time.
One day at a time is all I've got inside, but that's enough.
Okay, so instead of going A minor G the way I've done in other sections, this one goes from a C to an E7. And that E7 pulls us into a starting chord of F, and here we have it.
Sometimes I don't know if anything is up to me. The ground just moves beneath my feet. I've opened up myself to everything with sympathy, but it's left me here in disbelief. Is it sad?
Okay, lots going on. And often I will find myself in a dilemma of getting ideas for numerous parts, and then when you put them all together, you have to find a real way to make the jigsaw fit, because if it just sounds like a bunch of mush, which some of you may think it does, but I'll dive in here and show you how I try to fit all the parts together to fill out the sound the way I heard it in my head. So aside from the stuff that we've already heard, you know, the DI fuzzes, the drums, the synth bass, here's something that comes in that's new. We have guitar bends. So that blends in nicely because it's highlighting certain notes of the chords. Then we have a slide here. See those together? Okay, so that slide feeds in well to this Therevox here, which there are 4 tracks, and the Therevox is the instrument I mentioned at the beginning where I was tapping along there, but here I'm actually using the instrument for what it's worth. Here's by itself. So that's going with the ring. It's a very fun instrument to play because the glissando sound, you're actually in control of that. So no needing to set a rate. You just play it the way you feel. We now have some kind of Prophet 5 brass, it says. Let's see. That's not brass, it's bridge bass. Excuse me. And then we have the addition of this. Seems we have some harmonies here, some lead vocals. Let's see what those sound like.
Sometimes I don't know if anything is up to me. The ground just moves beneath my feet. I've opened up myself to everything with sympathy, but it's left me here in disbelief.
So as I said, even here, looking at these waveforms, you see that this Prophet 5 melody is fitting in between these rooted bass notes. Those things are obviously covered in a bed of these Therevox parts. The bends are on the beat, and this slide part is actually complementing this melody over here. So everything is strategically interwoven. Now, if you can recall the textures of the fuzz guitars and the drums and the synth bass, all of it together sounds like the following.
Sometimes I don't know if anything is up to me. The ground just moves beneath my feet. I've opened up myself to everything with sympathy, but it's left me here in disbelief.
Like a re-intro chorus.
Sadness looming overhead. I can take it, but I'm out of skin to shed.
Last
It's a
chorus.
tragic, everlasting dread. And I say one day at a time is all I've got inside, but that's enough. There's a sadness looming overhead. I can take it, but I'm out of skin to shed. It's a tragic, everlasting dread. And I say one day at a time is all I've got inside, but that's enough.
Okay, a lot of new vocals there. At the very end, I did a little bit of a vocal variation on the main melody just to show, okay, this is it, it's done.
Say one day at a time.
It's a very little difference, but it does make a difference. Let's go ahead and listen to these choirs.
Sadness looming overhead.
Okay, so these are the choirs that were initially muted in the first chorus, okay? And we also have some outro BV oohs and BV ahs, some of my favorites. Let's go ahead and listen to that.
Ooh, sadness looming overhead. Take it, put 'em out.
Okay, so when we have all the vocals for this final chorus, we have the following.
There's a sadness looming overhead. I can take it, but I'm out of skin to shed. It's a tragic, everlasting dread. And I say one day at a time is all I've got inside, but that's enough.
All right, that is Looming. I'm sure I missed some things. In fact, I've kept in the back of my mind that I did miss pointing out a backup vocal in verse 2. So why don't we just go ahead and listen to this really quickly. Completely unnecessary, but it's been nagging at me. So very simple.
Nowhere, 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 nowhere.
I am saying nowhere. And then what do we have here? That would be in the pre-chorus, highlighting some words in the chords there on the E flat major and the D minor. I refer to that style of backing vocal as the Freddies. So we have some Freddies there. But anyway, that is Looming. I have not even bothered to go down here because there's just too much going on. Bussing, reverbs. It's not that interesting for what we're talking about here. So that's Looming. Hopefully you found that interesting. If you haven't heard it, go ahead and listen to the track. Looming. It's everywhere. Hope you enjoyed it. Have fun. Go listen to some stuff.